Hi, I'm Morgan Irvin, and for my Life Through a Lens project, I am going to be looking at feminist theory. And I'm very excited to begin to kind of alter my view, or as you said, kind of put on the feminist theory glasses in my life so I can see what I might find, I guess, different whenever I'm looking at it in this way. We get so used to the way our life is and the routine that we're in and how other people talk to us or act around us that I don't think we begin to really see what's happening if it is something that could be really focused heavily in a feminist theory or a queer theory or Marxist theory, any of the theories. We don't realize how our life might be reacting in that way. So I'm excited to see if I notice anything different, if maybe I react differently to something, or if something stands out just a bit more to me. Either way, I'm excited to just do this project and spend a whole week in a feminist theory, especially as a woman. I think it'll be quite fun, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, we are continuing now onto day one of my Life Through a Lens project, the feminist theory. And today we are first going to be looking at music videos, or at least the music videos that I watch. So today on Monday, what's today? The 14th, I think? I think it's the 14th. Um, I got a notification that a band I really love, Ice Nine Kills, released a new music video for the new Terrifier movie. And I love this band. I love the Terrifier movies. This band does a lot of horror movie based songs. They base all their songs on horror movies and make these elaborate music videos about it. And I watched this new one and I watched it the first time around and I was like, okay, yay, this is so great. I loved it. It was gory, it was fun. It was like 15 minutes. Great. And then I kind of went on about my day, and then I sat down to start doing this, and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, let me watch this one more time. And I watched it again, and it kind of hit me that we're just killing all the girls. We Music videos just kill the girls. That's all we want to do. So on the far side, we have a work of art, which is the new song, the new music video. And the main person who is being murdered in this one, the main focus, is this girl in the middle with the blonde hair. It's always women. And then it's not even that it's a new thing for them. In a previous video of theirs from a few years back called Funeral Derangements, which is based on Stephen King's Pet Sematary, again, the main focus is on this woman dying. And both of them are women who have children. The first one, Work of Art, she's pregnant. The second one, Funeral Derangements, she of course has a child because Pet Sematary. She is playing the mom character in this. I can't remember the mom's name, but they are the ones being murdered. These women that are in lower rank than the men, they are having to get killed. They don't matter, and their deaths are shown off in a way for viewers or the murderers to enjoy. And it's always the women. It's always the women. And I just thought, for the first day, I thought I would start off with something kind of obvious. I guess I should have realized it, but I didn't until I'm watching a music video. But it's strange to see a band you really love, that I really love. I know even past this week I will keep listening to them. This is not a week to change my views or anything, but it's definitely interesting to see that a band I love and analyze them in a feminist theory way and realize that they are not aligning with that and are sticking to the gender norms of men being more powerful than women, women having to suffer, women having to bear the burden. and in this case bear the burden of being murdered. Well, that is my day one. Very simple for this first little bit. I think I'm just excited to see how the rest of this week goes. Welcome to day 2 of my life through a lens on the feminist theory. And we have my work environment, and we have a lot of male versus female kind of dynamics here. And so first want to point out, thank you to my coworkers for taking these lovely pictures for my project. They entertained me today and let me take these pictures of them. But I realized while at work and kind of thinking about this, I was like, we do kind of fall into our gender roles here. We have the 2 female workers on shift, me and my coworker Christina, and we are the ones mainly on the register, mainly especially in her case, working at that bar right there where you actually put together the food. She's not cooking the food, she's just putting together the food, while the men are doing the, I guess, dirtier work, as in they're cooking the meats, they're working at the grill, they're pulling out that giant potato tray that is heavy. And when I kind of saw him picking that up today, he did pose for that picture. But when thinking about work and I thought about that potato tray, it is very heavy, 20 potatoes on a gigantic metal tray. And I think it's even more than, I don't know. But he picked it up and no one really said anything. He did it normally, went to go put it back in, went to go throw it into the little drawer we put the potatoes in. And then later that day, we needed more, and I was the one over there, so I was like, okay, let me grab them. I grabbed the potatoes, and as soon as I walk over there, someone comments, goes, "Oh, you're so strong, Morgan." And I was like, okay. I didn't really think anything of it until later today. And I was like, my coworker didn't get any comments about him being so strong when he picked up the potato tray, but when me as a woman picks it up, they have to make a comment that, "Oh, you're so strong, like you're doing a man's job. You're doing a man's job." When really this is not a man versus woman job. This is we're all here working the same job. Why is it that whenever I do something, it's considered me doing something strong? But not even with that, I realized that I'm kind of perpetrating these stereotypes, because when I work the register, I've realized that whenever there's a couple, especially like a man and woman couple, I always look at the man first and I go, "Yes, sir, what can I get y'all?" I don't just say in general, "What can I get y'all?" That I could do that, but I've realized, why did I always go to, "Yes, sir, what can I get y'all?" It was as if I knew the man had to be the one answering the questions, is the one in charge. He knows what they want. When in reality, that's just not true. A lot of times I say that and the men just kind of look at their wives like they don't know what they're doing, and the woman ends up working. Yet I still do it because we got so pushed in our brains that men are the ones in charge. And so I see a man and I go, "Yes, sir, what can I get you?" And even whether it be coworkers saying things like I'm strong, me pointing out men and women and focusing on the men, to the point where I still get a little shocked sometimes whenever I'm like taking an order for a couple, even if they're not a couple, just a male and a female, because of course I don't know who's a couple and who's not. And the woman pulls out her wallet and pay, because I kind of look at the man and expect him to pay, and then my focus kind of shifts. I'm like, oh, she's paying. I'm not even thinking these things. And one thing that also I've realized is our restaurant is a lot of older people, and I get a lot of older men who make comments on my appearance, on my attitude, usually saying that I have a good one for the most part, saying things like, "Oh, you're so sweet, like you need to get a husband," or just saying like, "Oh, I wish my wife was like you." I had one guy say I needed to always smile like that, the way however I smiled. And it's just strange knowing that we have created not necessarily we, but in general, we have created a society where men can just say those things. They can look at this young girl who they don't even know is of age. Like I could very well be 16. I don't think I look 16, but they don't know that. And they're making these comments to me about how I look and whether I should or shouldn't have an attitude, or how I should treat them, if I should give them free food. And just it looking at today in this lens definitely changed my perception of how I should act at work. Not necessarily do anything wrong, but to give a little more focus to the women, to look at them, to stop giving into these roles that we have already are so pushed heavily onto. And today was very eye-opening, and I'm very appreciative of it. So thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next day. Welcome to day 3. And for day 3, I'm going to be looking at social media and celebrities and how women are often just sexual objects. After I got off work today and I was in between work and class, I of course was looking at social media because what else am I going to do? And right now there's a lot of talk about Sabrina Carpenter and Sydney Sweeney, 2 very popular females in the industry right now, one being an actress and one being a singer. And wow, the way these women are being treated right now. For starters, a lot of the posts that I have shown up here are posts about Sabrina Carpenter and how the current trend is getting mad at her for dressing like a child whenever she's a short woman and is wearing very provocative outfits. Yet, again, is being told she dresses like a child, because women have this standard of if they aren't dressing modestly, if they aren't dressing appropriate, especially in a small frame, they are being told they aren't being, mature. So they see her in these outfits and like, oh, she's a child, when that's not what's happening. She's wearing very adult things and acting very adult-like. And they even have other people complaining about how she's doing things very sexually on stage and how her music is very sexual. And she's doing it in front of these child fans. And people are kind of looking at the people claiming this and saying, well, why are parents not looking into what their children are listening to? There's this double standard of female artists in the industry having to be in charge of what they're doing and make sure they monitor what they are saying, what they're doing, and that they can't do what they want because, oh no, there's going to be children fans. But there's none of that same energy when it comes to the parents that are letting their kids listen to this. The women that are in charge, the women that are in the industry, they are the ones that are having to do this all. They have to make sure that they are not saying things sexually, that they're not wearing things. And so as soon as someone like Sabrina Carpenter comes along where she is showing that sexual side of her, that being very open about it, suddenly people are bashing her for it. And I think it's just a double standard we have lately. And one of the things I want to point out that not only plays into the feminist theory that I noticed, but also the racial theory that ties into feminist theory is one of these posts talks about how everyone is complaining about Sabrina's outfits, and then someone takes, well, yes, I understand that we're complaining about that, but we seem to appreciate hers more because of how small her frame is and how easy it is to view. I guess it's easy on the eyes, but the same cannot be said for the women of color who wear these same outfits, or even more provocative outfits, or even less provocative outfits. The women of color, the women that are a little bit heavier, they are not given that same love and attention that Sabrina Carpenter is now getting as a white woman, as a small white woman. And so I definitely think that's interesting to see the racial side of the feminist theory come into play here, even just on social media, of people pointing out, which that post actually, it is the one on the on the left, right next to the TikTok video. Not the little one, but the larger one from the user. I cannot read this at this size, but I want to point out that that post is now deleted. Whenever I went to go look for it later today to cite it, it's gone. The person deleted it, which makes sense that people are kind of lashing back at it, because it's pointing out that while yes, Sabrina Carpenter is doing a great thing by showing that sexual side of herself for people to see and be open about it as a woman, because we don't get that chance, there's still that big race juxtaposition with it, that while yes, she is getting praised for it for the most part, the black women or Asian or any woman of color that's already done that has already kind of been open with her sexuality, is not getting praised for it. If anything, is getting degraded for it. And whenever they dress even just a tiny bit more provocative, they get shamed for it. Which again, it's wild. And I want to point out the one other post that I have that is not about Sabrina Carpenter, but it's about Sydney Sweeney, is how she is only admirable whenever she's being dehumanized by men, which is what this person on TikTok states. How as soon as she's no longer playing these sexy roles in rom-coms or whatever other movie she's in, I don't know a whole bunch about Sydney Sweeney, but I did just see this post. She's not loved by men anymore. There's a new movie that, from what I understood from this video, that there's a new movie that she's doing over a wrestling match, or a woman who wrestles. I think it's, want to say it's wrestling. And so she has gained a little bit of weight for it, gained some muscle mass, and the men are not happy about it. They are seeing her now as ugly, and that she's no longer gorgeous and attractive and sexually arousing, because she can no longer be dehumanized by them. She can no longer be a sexual object to them, which I think celebrities is always that difficult thing to look at, especially in the feminist lens. It becomes even more obvious how women, both in your own private life and in the public light, are still being forced into these gender roles, and how we must always be below the men. And even if we are technically above them, Sydney Sweeney is technically above all these fans if you think about her money and her class and all these other aspects, but she's still pushed lower than them, because if they don't find her attractive, she's not worth anything. That was my day 3. I hope you enjoyed. It was fun. It was fun to look at social media in this way. Hi, welcome to day 4 of this project. We're moving along, and today we're going to be looking at horror movies, which, as you can see, are focused a lot on just moving the plot along. That's all women are for. I'm going to focus on 3 movies that 2 of them, actually 3 of them, all 3 of these I have just watched recently in this week. One of them I actually am going to watch later tonight, or at least the 3rd installment I'm going to watch later tonight, and I'm very excited for it. But in the feminist lens, it is not going to be very good. I already know that. So for the first one I want to talk about is very obvious, is American Psycho. It is, granted, one of my top 5 movies. I love this movie. I also love the book, but it definitely is not good for women at all. Especially in this movie, the women really are used to move the plot. Patrick focuses a lot of his murders on women and wanting to use them for his entertainment. And even when it comes to Jean, which is the woman that's in the picture with Patrick, his secretary, he gets very close to using her. She, again, is kind of used just to kind of move the plot along. She makes him realize that what he's doing is really wrong, and he luckily doesn't kill her, but he does go on a killing spree afterwards and kills other people. Not necessarily women, but it's not a movie that supports women in any way. The only women that are in this film are either his fiance, that is written very dumb, very blonde, very stereotypical rich woman who just wants to get married and wants to do what everyone else is doing, and it puts a bad taste in your mouth. Or then we have the prostitutes that he pays for their services only to murder them. But these are they are these women that are selling themselves to these rich men to hopefully make it by. We have Jean, his secretary, who is in love with him and does whatever he says. When he tells her to not wear pants to work and to wear high heels and a short dress and a skirt, she does it the next day. And all of these women are just catering to him. His fiance, while she does try and do things kind of where she tells him that she wants to get married, she wants to do these things, she still listens to him, stays with him, even though he's cheating, and since she is too. We have Jean, who, despite having this horrible boss, she stays and does what he says. Then we have these prostitutes that, with money, they are enticed to stay and get murdered before they even know it. And they are just objects to him. They are just objects. Which kind of goes into the next movie I want to talk about, Hostel, which I will always have on. It was probably on earlier this morning whenever I was getting ready to go to my observations. I love this movie. It is also one of my top ones. But the way it views women is, again, just they move the plot along. We have these two women who are essentially being used by the society, the hunting society, that the main characters are not aware that they are now getting pushed into. And they are used to entice and drug these men without them knowing, so the other workers of this elite group can get them tied up and put them in a room, so the men who paid for these services to kill other people can kill these men. And these two women know they are conventionally attractive, that they have good bodies, that they can talk to these men, that they love exotic women because they are in another country. They're in Slovakia. That's where the movie takes place. They know that they use their role as women as sexual objects in men's eyes and make it useful for them. While it seems a little empowering in that sense, it still kind of falls flat in this movie, because at the beginning of Hostel, we have these group of men that are purely traveling Europe to get one of the other guys to forget about his relationship. They are all just looking for sex, looking for hot women to be with, and that's all they're there for. And so even though we have these two women that are using their role in a way to get money from stupid tourists and kill them, even though they're not necessarily the ones killing them, it still falls flat. It still doesn't necessarily reach that feminist level, which it's not like anyone's expecting these horror movies to get that way, but especially a 2005 horror film. But it definitely is a strange juxtaposition from the beginning of the movie to the end, when we see these women who are revealed to have used these men to trick them and to get them into the elite society and be used as products, pretty much, because then the men are tortured and some of them are killed. Then we move on to the last one, the Terrifier franchise, which is actually the third one, is the one I'm going to see tonight. I'm very excited, but it is not that good, especially in the feminist light. Ugh. The Terrifier movies focus a lot on just murder and a lot of gore. And especially in the first one, it is only women. It is only the women that are being used and being murdered and tortured, and these elaborate deaths that are so intense and extreme and disgusting. It's all women. And the Terrifier movies, while I love them, and I'm going to see one tonight, they definitely don't give the women much power. It is not until the second one where this girl character right here, Sienna, that she's introduced, and she's actually like an actual character. She has development. She is wanting to defeat the Terrifier, aka Art the Clown. She is wanting to destroy him, and actually has brains outside of being a victim. But it took them until the second movie to do that, and even then they put her in a sexy Halloween costume. They make her conventionally attractive. They still use other women in the movie that she's friends with as ways to move the plot along. And it all just dwindles down to movies still having a tendency of putting women in the stereotypical roles and not letting them flourish anywhere else. And as much as I love all of these movies, especially in any horror movie at that, I can see that they don't align with the feminist lens at all. They very much stick to the gender roles, and they're not for everyone, and I can recognize that. Thank you for joining me for day 4. I will see you tomorrow. Hi, we are now at day 5, almost to the end, and today we're going to be looking at song lyrics, or just songs in general, which honestly this has been my favorite one to make so far because I'm a big music person. I love all of these bands that I have on here, but we can definitely admit that they are not very feminist-like, that they hate women, or they say they love women but actually hate them. I don't believe that these people or these bands actually hate women, but I can point out the little bit of misogynistic lyrics about them, especially when it comes to 3 of these bands on here. So the ones in red, I should point this way, the ones in red, we have Ice Nine Kills at the top. In the middle we have Murderdolls, and then we have Pantera. And all 3 of these kind of focus mainly on violence women, on harming women, on the violence, and they hide it behind love. So with Ice Nine Kills, we have the fastest way to a girl's heart is through her rib cage. He talks about how she is sexy while bleeding, that she's seducing him, and that he needs to kill her evil, and that she's the one making him do these things. Or we have Murderdolls and Die My Bride, and he's saying, all you ever meant to me was nothing. I'm going to marry you, but then I'm going to kill you. He doesn't want to kiss her, he wants to kill her. And then with This Love by Pantera, he says that he stole her heart, but everything was pain and he regrets it, but he makes her unhappy. So he feels like he's at right for hurting her because she made him so unhappy. And I love all 3 of these bands. I love them, but that's a little concerning. Not usually. I don't usually make it concerning to myself, but looking at it through this lens for this week, it is definitely interesting to see how common 3 different bands making songs about women and taking the love they have for them, but instead turning it into violence and wanting to kill them and hurt them. And then on the other note, we have the band in blue, Fall Out Boy, and the band in pink, Panic at the Disco, who have more of just misogynistic lyrics that focus on kind of dumbing women down or not liking them because they no longer have interest in you. So we have the Fall Out Boy song tell that Mick he just made my list of things to do today, where he talks about a woman who is now with another man and how he wouldn't even put her out if she was on fire, and that he hopes that the new man she's with hurts her and doesn't love her. And then we have the Panic at the Disco song. Very long title, I know. It is. There's a good reason these tables are table numbered, honey. You just haven't thought of it yet. It's a mouthful. But in this one, there's a section that I've screenshotted where he talks about how the women aren't in the bathroom and they're dumbed down to these women that only care about the looks and being fashionable, and that if you don't have the same things, that you're cheap, and as a woman you're having to sit there and be like, I'm just like these women too, I deserve to be here, but you're being belittled by other women. Because in men's eyes, that's all we care about. All we care about is fashion and looking pretty and comparing with other women. Or in Fall Out Boy's case, we only want to be with the new guy. And if we aren't with whoever's singing, they're going to lash out on us. And so I think all 5 of these bands are really great. Minus the lead singer of Panic at the Disco, but we won't get into that. But through a feminist lens, they do not like women. They do not love women. They hate women. And I digress. I love, like I said before, I love these bands. But it's very interesting to see how much can be written about women, and not even necessarily in songs that you would expect. You know, you hear people talk about rap music and how it degrades women, but no one really thinks about pop punk or metal and how those people still can degrade women in ways, even if it's not necessarily how the band views women. It still is interesting to see what lyrics they can make, how they can make love equate to violence, especially when it comes to women. And again, like I've said many times, women have to suffer for men, and that's all that's happening this week, it seems. But I hope you enjoy. This one was kind of quick, I know, but a lot of it was me just saying, I love these bands, please don't hate them. They don't hate women, at least I hope they don't hate women. But yeah, thank you so much. Hi, welcome to day 6, and today we're going to be looking at TV shows and the lack of growth that is given to these female characters, or at least for 2 of the shows. We would look at the lack of growth in them when concerning women, or at least characters that concern women. So for the first one I want to look at is one that I watch on the daily, that I watched today already, is Friends. And I know everyone knows Friends. It's an older show, so when it comes to, you know, looking at it in a feminist lens, it could be quite easy to find things that are in that lens, because it's an old show and it surely does not keep up to the times completely. But one of the things I want to focus on is the character Joey, and how his whole personality that the creators made is a man who loves food, loves women, and wants to enjoy both of them. As in, he only wants to have sex all the time. He sees a woman walking by and all he can think of is, oh, I want to have sex with her. Oh, she's good looking, let me have sex with her. There's no love, there's no attraction beyond attraction by how attractive these women are. There's no getting to know them. Even whenever there's a moment when he is living with one of the female friends, Rachel, there's still comments on how, oh, like, Joey, don't bring a woman over when the baby's here. Oh, like, they're having to tell him that he can't do such and such because, oh, he's always having sex with women. And it's just become this running joke, which makes sense. That's how a lot of these sitcom shows work. But it's still harmful to see in some ways when a character like Joey, that is very much loved by fans, I love him, but was dumbed down throughout the entire show to be, one, extremely dumb. Comparing the first season to the last season, which I know this is kind of pointless talking about a man in the feminist lens, but hear me out. He gets dumbed down quite a bit from season 1 to season 10, and is only focused on having sex with women. There's one tiny bits of time where he actually loves someone, but he's still just someone who he's a man who falls right into the gender role of only seeing women as objects, but then still wanting to have sex with them and supposedly fall in love with them. There's one point where he tries to keep his sister from getting married because she's pregnant before marriage, and she wants to marry the father of her son, but he's mad at her for having sex before marriage, and this double standard that he's had sex and has never been married in his 30s. Meanwhile, his younger sister, he's getting mad at for it. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of double standards in that show. I love Friends very much, but it's a tough watch when I'm looking at it in that lens. The second one that I watch almost daily is Community. And these three women are really what I wanted to focus on when it came to lack of growth, or at least two of the girls. Because, wow. The two girls on the left, the blonde one and the darker haired one, Annie and Britta the blonde one, they are only focused entirely around the main male character, Jeff. Their whole identity seems to revolve around him almost. Britta, from the very beginning, is this object that he wants to pursue, and is the only reason why the study group starts, because he sees her as like, I want to be with her, and so he finds elaborate ways to get her. Annie, on the other hand, begins to form a crush on him, and a strange age gappy relationship begins between them, kind of a little cat and mouse play, and it's very strange because then her whole character turns into revolving around him, and there's almost no growth at all between these girls on the, I think, 6 seasons maybe. And it's troubling to see that even a kind of more modern show than Friends can still fall back into that. And for the last one I want to talk about is The Queen's Gambit, which I am currently watching right now. I think I'm on like episode 3, I think. And for this one, I just want to focus on how they've created this character, and she is playing this man's game. They keep saying that it's a man's game. You can't play it. It's a man's game. And her, Beth, she is like, what makes it a man's game? Like, I'm playing. I'm good. I'm smarter. I'm smarter than most of these men playing. And she has to go between all these men also playing and face them as this woman who they all see as like, oh, she's a girl. She can't do this. She can't play chess. And I think in this sense, she does show a lot of growth. This one's the kind of outlier because I'm currently watching it, and she has already shown quite a bit of growth. And she's this powerful woman that is being shown in this film as going against these men in this man's game because a woman can't play chess. And it's nice to see, especially when looking at it through this feminist lens. It's nice to have something a little more positive in this than negative. And so I'm glad that I just happened to be watching this. My boyfriend recommended it, so he loves chess, so I was like, let's watch it. And I'm safe to say that I'm very interested in it, and it really fits this week. And thank you so much for my day 6. Hi, welcome to my day 7 of my Life in a Lens project, looking at the feminist theory. And today we'll be talking about literature, especially like the literature in my home and what I own and what I read, along with one that I have not read, but I see a lot on my time in social media, and I hear a lot of people talk about it. But I want to focus on how I have this very big overarching theme in my Week in a Life in a Lens project, is that women must suffer more. And we have almost everything that I've looked at has this theme of women being used and having to suffer some kind of abuse, or just having to deal with men who don't love them. And the patriarchy has given men this higher up role that has allowed them to push women down and abuse them and speak ill of them and do whatever they want, even if it hurts women. And it's all for entertainment. The other men begin to consume it, and soon, as I've realized, even as a woman, I'm consuming it. I'm watching these movies, watching these TV shows, listening to this music, reading these books that I will explain in just a moment. and we're consuming it all. We see, even as other women, we see women in these minor roles, not necessarily like the minor roles in the films, but just minor roles in life. And we see that they are easier to make suffer and give those shock-worthy deaths and these just disgusting moments that just make you just want to throw up, essentially. And it's all women. It's all of the women suffering. And so while living this week, I have realized that a lot of what I consume is not a feminist lens appropriate, I guess you could say. It does not it does not line up with the feminist view. I've realized a lot the books that I own, the movies I watch, the songs I listen to, a feminist theory person would not find those very feminist like. But I don't think I'll stop loving these things. I won't stop consuming these books or these movies, and definitely won't stop listening to the music. But I can definitely say that I will start to kind of look at things a little bit differently. Kind of think in the back of my mind, like, okay, like there's another woman being murdered on screen, but there's only one other guy. Here's how many women have been killed in this movie, but only this many guys. Or when I'm reading a book, I may think, okay, why is the main person suffering a woman every time? Like, I just think this has kind of helped me take a step back and focus on what I'm consuming and be mindful of it. Even though I still thoroughly enjoy it. I love these books, or 2 out of the 3 books I love. And I don't think I'll ever stop loving them. But I can say that this week has been a nice challenge for myself, and it's been very fun. So I'm very glad that I was able to do this. Now on to the books. For the first one, we have Tender is the Flesh, which focuses on a future where animal meat is not safe to eat, and so humans must eat other human flesh. And the main character, I want to say he's given a woman as a gift from his job, a woman that is solely for eating, because they begin to, breed people and have it where there are only certain humans for eating. And instead of just simply eating her like people would in this world, he instead decides to use her to gain what he wants. He has sex with her. He almost seems to fall in love with her. And as she then begins to go through pregnancy in a state of mind where she does not understand what is going on, he essentially abuses in lack of better words, a child, has her carry another child. And then by the time she gets pregnant, he then discards her. He murders her so he can simply have a child because his wife couldn't have one. Or maybe not couldn't have one, but her son had passed away. And all he needed was that woman to carry his child so he didn't have to suffer anymore, or what he thought was suffering. Instead, he made a woman suffer because he didn't want to be in that role. But it's easier for him to have a woman be in that role. Overall, it's a very beautiful book. I enjoyed reading it, but it definitely has a heavy focus on women being the main, I guess, meat people eat. For the second book, we have A Diary of an Oxygen Thief, which is actually by an anonymous author, but so I'm not sure if it's a male or female writing it, but it's safe to assume that the narrator of the story is a male, as he starts off the book with directly saying that he hates women and wants to destroy them, and he loves hurting them, not necessarily physically, but mentally. And This entire book, very short book, focuses on him just destroying a woman. He so desperately wants to hurt any woman in his life, whether they're good to him or not. All because he can do it. He's a man and he can do it. And then for the third book, I've not read this book. I don't want to read this book. I will never read this book. But It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, which is now actually a movie. I've heard a lot of things about Colleen Hoover in general, especially this book. A lot on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. I get a lot of things about this book. And it focuses on domestic violence, and I think it does an awful job at it. And it really glamorizes it and almost gives across this message of a woman cannot be loved unless she is being hurt, unless she is suffering. And that's just not true. That's not how it works. And I've just heard a lot of bad things about Colleen Hoover's writing. And when I was sitting down to figure out what my day 7 was going to be, I looked at my bookshelf that's just over there, and I kind of sat for a minute, and I got on my phone, and of course I scroll a few videos and someone's talking about Colleen Hoover, and once again pointing out just the awful things she writes about and almost makes light of, and does not have these powerful women that are escaping domestic abuse. No, she has women, or at least female readers, reading about these women still loving these men, and the female readers are just, they also fall in love with these characters even if they're abusing a woman. And it just pains me to think of young children reading these books because of how popular she's gotten and seeing this. But overall, like I've said, women are made to suffer. And I think we all need to be a little mindful of what we are consuming media-wise. And while I do enjoy these films and movies, TV shows and books, all of these things that have to do with horror and guts and scary, gross things, I can admit that a lot of what I consume is against women and is hurting women, or at least hurting the view of how powerful we could be. And I will admit, there are so many movies coming out where women are the main ones in these horror films and are finally beating the bad guys. But that's not what we're looking at. So I will end it here. But thank you so much for joining me on this week. And bye-bye.